What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. Hope you guys are all doing well. It's Sunday, March 10th. We're going to be looking at the relative athletic scores, RAS scores, for the 2024 rookie class. This being a fantasy football channel, we're going to look first at the QBs, running backs, receivers, and tight ends. Now, not all the elite guys tested at the combine. We're going to get that information on their pro days. So we have, maybe like 80% of the RAS scores, which is nice. And then at the end of the video, we'll go over the full list of RAS scores, defensive players, offensive linemen, everything non-fantasy football related. So we're going to hop right into a screen share. And hey, if you guys are new to the channel, definitely subscribe, like the video. It helps the channel grow, all that good stuff. And relative athletic scores, man, they don't mean everything, but they are they're really fun to look at, and they do indicate, just how athletic a player is at the moment right now. And we'll look, once we go through this, I'm gonna pull up a couple of the previous years to kind of just do a player comparison tool. So there are links in the description, and I want to give a shout out to the actual website, Kentley Platt, the maker of the RAS score. Fantastic work. Love his. Look forward to these RAS scores every year they come out. So there's a link to his website, ras.football, and then I simply just kind of did a mashup of some things on the fantasyfellowship.com. So we'll kind of go back and forth between the two. But let's start. And if you do click on the link for the Fantasy Fellowship, I pull up the quarterbacks, receivers, wide receivers, and tight ends first. And you can filter over here by RAS score. You can also just click on the positions and kind of get that figured out for yourself. So I'm going to click position, and we're gonna start with the quarterbacks. Now, I only got 4 QB RAS scores for this class so far. We're going to be getting all the big names, all their 40 times, all their measurements, all that good stuff will be coming at their pro days. So we're not going to take too much notice of the quarterbacks here. Kadan Slovis, though, proved to be pretty athletic, 9.84 RAS score. Michael Pratt, 8.23. Sam Hartman, 4.41. And Spencer Rattler, though, only 4.13. So pretty devastatingly low scores for these QBs. And then when I said we're going to go back and forth here, I did kind of pull up a filter I love the RAS website. You can easily filter, and you can look at the whole set, which goes back to 1987, I think. But I chose 2020 to 2024, so we're looking at the last 4 or 5 draft classes here. And the best RAS score of all time for a quarterback is Anthony Richardson. He scored a perfect 10.10 or 10.10 out of 0 here. So Kanan Slovis actually put up the next best one, 9.84. So who knows? Maybe he can stick around as an athletic backup QB and make some plays with his legs, something like that. Clayton Tune actually put up a nice score last year, 9.83. Justin Herbert, one of the better scores, 9.7. Desmond Ridder with a nice one, 9.62. Felipe Franks, 9.56. Jalen Hurts, 9.52. Kenny Pickett was solid, 9.53. Don't know who Adrian Martinez is. He didn't get drafted. EJ Perry, 9.43. Cole McDonald, Sean Clifford, and I'm just kind of looking for someone the bigger note, like Jordan Love, 8.43. That's a solid, QBs don't need to score off the charts for this measurement, but it's nice to see them at least a little bit athletic. So Jordan Love was the top name that kind of popped off there. There's Dorian Thompson-Robinson, obviously Anthony Richardson at the top of the list. So overall, I'm not going to take too much away from the RAS scores. Mac Jones, who just got traded today to Jacksonville, I believe. So quarterbacks, it is kind of what it is. We'll wait and see if those guys get any numbers in here. But let's move on to the running backs. And honestly, it's one of the more important spots, I think. Running back and receiver and tight end, I think this is very important, these RAS scores. Isaac Guerrero here, he actually put up the second best number, and I think that was of the whole combine. Let me see. Tied for second best number in the entire combine. We'll look at that list later. But Guerrero, if you're looking strictly at RBs, Guerrero puts up the number 2 best time, in the fantasy landscape, 9.98. Jalen Wright, 9.82. Tyrone Tracy, who former wide receiver, and he kind of unlocked himself as a running back at Purdue, 9.81. He's a really exciting potential third down back. Trey Benson with a nice score here, 9.77. Marshawn Lloyd, 9.29. Dylan Lobb, 9.21. Kamani Vidal, 8.84. You got Isaiah Davis here, 8.72. Kendall Milton, 8.68. Audric Estime, despite running his slow time, put up a decent score, 8.59. Blake Corum, 8.48. George Holani, Keelan Robinson, Jiren Mitchell, Michael Wiley, kind of a third down specialist, 7.13. Jalen Sheridan, Ramon Davis, Dylan Johnson, Cody Schrader, Bucky Irving, man. He lost a lot of draft capital at the NFL Combine. He was one of the slower, one of the more disappointing 40 times, just didn't test well athletically at all. A 3.71. To me, Bucky Irving, we were kind of hoping he could be a James White, Giovanni Bernard type at the next level, and I don't know if athletically he's there. And then Bailey ranked pretty low here. So let's pull up the previous scores from 2020 to 2024. Garendo with the number one score, Brees Hall 9.96, Kenny Nwangwu 9.9. So I mean, I just want you guys to know that this is the biggest extreme sample. You have Brees Hall on one side and Kenny Nwangwu. So no matter how good of an RAS score you have, you're looking at the entire spectrum of NFL skill set. So Nwangwu is just a special teamer. Rashad White, I actually didn't know he posted that high of an RAS. That's good to know. Chris Evans out of Michigan. He's in Cincinnati. Master Teague. Bijan with a nice score. Xander Horvath. There's Jalen Wright. So Jalen Wright puts up like a top 10-ish RAS score. Zamir White actually tested out well. There's Tyrone Tracy, Chase Brown, Trey Benson, Jake Funk, Trey Sermon, 9.67. Deneric Prince down there. Let's look around and see if there's any other big head names here. Elijah Mitchell, 9.48. Pierre Strong, Evan Hall. There's Marshawn Lloyd right next to Kenneth Walker. I think that's a really good comparison. Marshawn Lloyd's kind of like this. He's kind of like a bull in a china shop. He's a really good first and second down runner. We'll see if he can hold down work as a receiver. But those two kind of comparable with the way that they play football. Travis Etienne, a 9.12. There's Pacheco with an 8.85. Javonte Williams, 8.78. James Cook, 8.75. So you have some good players here, all at least getting over 8. Let's keep looking here. Zach Charbonnet, 8.71. Roshan, 8.67. There's Estime. There's Chuba Hubbard, Blake Corum. You got Tank Bigsby, Amari DiMercado above an 8. I kind of want to look for a cutoff to see where we stop seeing some good names. So Jahmyr Gibbs, 8.07, didn't test all that well, but he still got a green score at least. And then all these numbers now are below 8. So do we have any big names here that we need to know? Tajay Spears, Tyler Algier, these guys are nice pieces. I don't know if they're feature backs necessarily. Let's keep looking for Dameon Pierce. Again, not really a feature back at this point anymore. Can we go on to page 6? And now we're like in the low 6s for RAS score. Brian Robinson Jr. played what he's been playing well. So he might be an outlier. Ty Chandler might be a little bit of an outlier. Khalil Herbert, Keaton Mitchell, but I do think the higher your RAS score, the better this looks. We're not really finding as many good names as we get further down the list here. Devon Achane actually had a terrible RAS score, 5.73. Still turned out to be pretty all right. So there's your running back scores. Let's move into the wide receivers for this season. The top of the list, you have Adonai Mitchell, 9.98. That's going to be one of the better scores out of the receivers we've seen. Xavier Legette, 9.92. Romo Dunze, 9.91. Cornelius Johnson, 9.90. Johnny Wilson, 9.88. Devontae Walker, 9.87. Brian Thomas Jr., 9.86. Ryan Flournoy, Southeast Missouri State, 9.83. I don't know why why our receivers are popping up here, but Ricky Pearsall, I like him quite a bit, 9.78. Bub Means, 9.77. Luke McCaffrey, 9.56. Jermaine Burton, Jalen Pope, Jalen Coker, all in the 9.4s, 9.5s. There's Xavier Worthy, the fastest player in NFL draft history, 9.34. Jalen McMillan, Casey Washington, Keon Coleman with a 9.18, Malik Washington, Brendan Rice, there's Ladd McConkey, 8.54, Troy Franklin, Anthony Gold, and Javon Baker. So the RAS score, it really does favor players who are big and fast. So that's why you see some of those archetypes at the top of the list. Now, if we go to RAS scores over the last few years, Chase Claypool with the number one, 9.98. Bryce Ford Wheaton, Christian Watson, Andre Yoshivas, Kevin Austin, Derek Young, Legette, Odunze, Cornelius Johnson. Let's look for some other names from previous drafts. Jonathan Mingo actually tested really well. There's Alec Pierce, there's Jamar Chase. So you're kind of seeing, these bigger bodied outside receivers. So it's kind of easy to test well for those guys just because they have the height grade in their favor already. It's just, do they have speed is the question mark. And there's not a lot of big like Justin Jefferson finally. Otherwise, there's a lot of big names that are busting up here. There's Nico Collins. But yeah, you kind of get the point there. RAS score, you want to be big, you want to be fast, and that's kind of the best way to get higher on these boards here. So we'll finish up here with the tight end position here. And can we filter by that? We'll finish with the tight ends here. Let me go all the way. Can we do tight end? Alrighty. So tight end, you got Theo Johnson with a 9.99. His comparative or his comp is Jimmy Graham coming out of college with his measurables and his speeds. Tip Ryman out of Illinois, 9.93. Ben Sinnott, 9.75. Jared Wiley, 9.53. Tanner McLaughlin, Jaheim Bell. Cade Stover, a little bit of disappointment there, 8.4. I thought Jatavian Sanders would have tested better as well, 8.06. Spanford, Dallin Hoker, Trey Knox. No Brock Bowers yet, but it is interesting to note that these guys are freaks up here. Theo Johnson and Tip Raymond, looking back at the last previous years, Zach Kuntz, never saw him in the NFL last year, but there's Theo. Jelani Woods, don't know who Chase Harrell is, but Tip Raymond, Darnell Washington, Luke Schoonmaker, Luke Musgrave with a high score, Kyle Pitts, Tucker Kraft. A lot of guys from the 2024 class are at the top of this list. So that's good to see. There's a lot of names that are hit or miss on this list, but Brenton Strange. There's Sam Laporta with a 9.02. Cole Kmet, 8.92. Troutman. Davis Allen. Don't sleep on Davis Allen, 8.58. We'll go one more page deep here. Dulcich, still a guy that I think can play at the next level. There's Trey McBride, 8.10. So kind of in line with Sanders, which is nice to see. You kind of want your guys to be, athletic enough. So anything above an 8 should be a decent size. So those are your fantasy positions. I'm just going to note kind of the top RAS scores from the non-fantasy positions. That's going to be Brandon Coleman, offensive guard out of TCU, 9.98. You have Mason McCormick, the offensive guard out of South Dakota State, 9.97. Miles Cole, the defensive end out of Texas Tech, 9.96. Jarrett Kingston, offensive guard, USC, 9.93. There's Tip Raymond, Leggett. Joe Alt was the number one offensive tackle, 9.91. You got Braden Fisk, number one D tackle out of Florida State, 9.9 or 9.88. Rook Orororo out of Clemson, defensive tackle number 2, 9.87. Might be a second round pick. A lot of offensive guards highly ranked here. The number one cornerback was Jarian Jones out of Florida State. I just want to look at some of the other cornerbacks real quick and show you. Jarian Jones, Quinion Mitchell, DeCameron Richardson, Elijah Jones, Kyrie Jackson, Max Melton, who I like quite a bit. So a lot of names here, but you guys can check all that out for yourself. Check out the top positions at the RAS score. Just wanted to kind of do a quick video and recap some of the scores for you guys. But either way, thanks for hanging out. We'll see you guys in a future video. Enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.